Yes, we released it today. So by the time anybody hears this, they can go back and check that episode out for themselves. And yes, Becky, before we kick the show off, I want to let the audience know you did not just ditch me. You didn't call me and just say, hey, listen, Titanic is playing on TV and I'm just going to sit back with some popcorn and not show up. So it was the weather. It was weather related. You all know the crazy ice and snow that was happening in Texas all along the East Coast. So Becky didn't just ditch us. Let's introduce our guest. Today, we welcome the president and CEO of TriQ Credit Union, Doug Wadsworth. Welcome to the podcast, Doug.
Good to be here. Thank you.
For years, small credit unions have complained about regulatory burdens. Now they're getting what they asked for. In December 2025, the NCUA launched a deregulation project following Trump's executive order unleashing prosperity through deregulation. The agency is reviewing all its regulations with comment periods closing February 27th of this month. Proposed changes include eliminating collateral requirements for surety agreements, streamlining advertising rules, and reducing catastrophic event reporting. That's a lot of stuff, but I have no idea if that gets to the root of any of the issues that smaller credit unions are facing. Doug, I'm sure you're familiar with this. What parts of the NCUA's deregulation effort do you think will actually help small credit unions? And do you think there is any possibility for this to backfire?
First of all, I don't think there's any chance for a backfire. And probably not a lot of it's going to help. It won't help my credit union. I don't see many of it helping other small credit unions, but it's the right direction. So I'm really excited about it. I totally support it. But how much will it help? Not very much. There's lots of other areas that I'd love to talk about that would help that the NCUA can do.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those areas then, because when we talk about the regulatory burden, I guess there's a lot of things that I hear. So I want to hone in, first of all, on the regulations, the burdens that you think are kind of the biggest buzzkill for the growth and the existence of small credit unions right now.
For the growth, for the survival, some of the regulations really are more of legislative. They're not really the regulator. But a lot of what the regulator does is really suffocating the small credit unions. Which regulations really make it hard? I did a survey of a bunch of my friends' small credit unions, and it was mostly CECL, and then it was the Bank Secrecy Act. And part of that was the examination pressure for the Bank Secrecy Act. And after that, the biggest hurdles were the examiners themselves pressuring small credit unions to over-comply. And then it was just examination exhaustion. Exams, way too many examiners, going way too long, inane checklists that don't impact safety or soundness, threatening DORs on things that are not impactful and not urgent. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
So you did a survey. So you listed some of the stuff that showed up on the survey, but I want to ask you personally, of what you just listed, what is the one that gets under your skin the most in your experience?
Personally, I'd have to say BSA, and then HMDA, and then NMLS.
Explain. Go a little deeper for the folks that may not know what that means.
So Bank Secrecy Act, of course, it's a ton of work because we're filing all these papers despite inflation, and we still have to file these reports, even though it's been $10,000 for like 20 years. So we have to file like hundreds of these reports. And then when an examiner comes, they just ride you, even for things that are not systemic at all. Like I made a typo on one of them. Oh, we're going to have to do a document a resolution for you. You're like, what? Or like the other day, you have to do suspicious activity reports, SARs, if you have somebody suspicious and it's over like $5,000. So at a small credit union, we hardly ever have that. We're tiny. We know our members. They come in and out. We always catch stuff usually before it gets big. Anyway, so the other day, two exams in a row, they came in and they said, oh, well, you're not filing enough SARs. I'm like, well, there's nothing suspicious. So they said, how about you document every time you don't have to file a SAR, which is insane. And I had to push back hard. So that drives me crazy. And then there's like the HMDA. Like right now, the way the regulations are, if we do 24 home equity loans and a single mortgage, I have to do all the HMDA reporting, which is like 100 hours of labor. So it's just like, well, why not just push me out of the market? Or NMLS. Don't get me started on NMLS. I can go on that one as well. So there's some examples.
Wow. So one of those reports can take up to 100 hours of time. Becky, you've had experience. While Doug was talking, you were smiling and laughing. It sounds to me like you were laughing because you felt pain. It's funny to you now because you're no longer in that spot as a CEO. But kind of talk to me about what Doug is talking about, this burden that is crushing small credit unions.
You know, he is so right. So I had an examiner, actually, one of her key things that she would do is go through our call report and try to find a mathematical error or a key entry error, right? Where we entered a 8 instead of a 6 or, something like that. And she would spend a whole day looking at it, trying to find an error. And if she did find an error, which frankly, most of the time she found at least one that was minuscule and really not material, but we would have to go and refile the whole call report. And, it's for what? I can't tell you how many times every single exam, I would have a different examiner tell me I needed to recalculate my allowance for loan loss calculation. Every time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the last time you were here 12 months ago or 18 months ago, this was fine. And now you're telling me I need to do it a different way. And so, that's a whole debacle there. Yes, BSA stuff, having to they haven't done this in a long time, but, proving that your field of membership. So you have to go back into the account opening information to verify that they qualified for membership. He's absolutely right about exam fatigue. I mean, I was always a smaller credit union too, and we would have examiners there for 2 weeks and we would have up to 10 at a time. I mean, we're not supposed to say our camel code, but we were a low number camel code, which is good. Not doing a lot of risky things, just doing very plain vanilla consumer lending, auto loans, real estate, simple home equity loans. We did some mortgages that we would sell. I mean, nothing too crazy. And we would just get these crazy exams. And frankly, the cleaner your exam was, the more they dug into things ridiculous just so they could find something. That cripples small credit unions. And to Doug's point, when you are a credit union with four people, just redoing the call report means you're not able to reconcile GLs for a whole week. So it definitely has an impact that's probably not apparent initially, but downstream, it absolutely has detrimental effects.
Maybe close out with one last question, Doug. You said that the NCUA seems to be moving in the right direction. You're not really convinced that it's really going to change things in the grand scheme of things per se. But when you communicate these frustrations, and Becky, I know this has probably been happening for so long, maybe I know the answer, but is the NCUA really listening to you all when it comes to these frustrations? Do you feel like, in your opinion, Doug, is the NCUA listening?
So they are now better than I've ever seen before. And every little thing they've done will help a little. So boy, I welcome it. 100% I welcome it. But they're still pretty small. The big problems are still over-compliance pressure, which falls down to the individual examiners at your location. Because they can change whatever they want up at the top. But then by the time you filter all the way down to the people in the small shops, it's not getting there. Like the right sizing regulations, the flexibility for small credit unions, the over-compliance pressure, those things are really hard to change on the front line, even though they're trying to change them at the top.
If you've been listening to this show, AI is everywhere, but businesses still aren't seeing real value in the technology. While over 800 million people use ChatGPT and employees quietly admit to using AI at work, formal business adoption tells a different story. Just over 10% of large companies have embedded AI into their production processes. That's according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And my favorite little study that I pulled for this segment, last year, there was an MIT study that found that 95% of business AI pilots failed to generate any return at all. Credit unions, we're talking about AI. There's a lot of hype around it. Some credit unions are adopting it early. There's a lot that are not. Doug, I'm just going to hit you with this one real quick off the top, and then we can get into the study. Do you think AI is failing to deliver the value it promised?
No. Matter of fact, I think it's been fantastic so far. Now, you get a bunch of companies or vendors that throw the letters AI into their business name, and really, they don't really do much of it. But as far as from small credit unions, me and a lot of my friends, we're using it a lot, and we're just going to use it more. So I'm thrilled. I mean, it could take something that would take me 4 hours, and it takes me 4 minutes instead. And that's I've just got like a Grok AI subscription for $30 a month, and I got a handful of projects on there. It's incredibly useful, and I can only see it increasing.
Talk to me about some of the use cases. Is there one particular use case that you love the most? I really want to understand, how are you using it?
Yes. So for instance, I'm pretty involved with regulatory advocacy for small credit unions. I've got a little group of credit unions and I'm working with them. So anytime there's a new regulation, you can plug it into AI and it'll analyze it and the effects that it'll have on a small credit. And of course, you got to double check references and whatnot, And then if I want to do, for instance, you mentioned the NCUA and they have all those regulatory proposals. So there's a whole list of them. There's 4 different sections that have come out now. So I can just use AI to analyze all of them. Then I can give it my organization and my perspective, and I can have it write for me a support comment that I can post on the NCUA website. And normally that would take me hours, and I can do it all in like 10 minutes. So huge time saver.
And sorry, how that would have taken you hours? What you just did in 10 minutes, that would have taken you multiple hours?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Becky, let me pass the mic to you. I'm going to hit you in a different direction, which is, why do you think so many businesses in this MIT study are reporting a failure to see a return? And I'm using air quotes for the folks listening.
Fear. They're afraid that AI or some disembodied technology is going to disrupt their business model. And their business model could be, very people heavy, and they don't want to admit that using AI does replace people. I think that fear is unfounded, because I think that means that AI can replace some of the things that people do, which frees people up to do things different or do other things instead of doing that. Like Doug was talking about, instead of spending 3 hours contemplating how he's going to write a letter to NCUA, he can do that in 3 minutes and he can get on with the rest of his day. Now, does that mean that he just got replaced? Well, maybe for that 3-hour task he did, but I don't think he's going to complain about that, right? So I think that these companies in some regard are fearful of admitting that, maybe there's a technology out there that just reveals the iterative and repeatable nature of what they do.
I want to piggyback on what you said about repeatable, because tell you a little story that'll set you up nice, Doug, for this question I have for you, because I've been thinking about this, thought about this one in the shower. There was I used to intern at a company, long story short, in New York City, went to a friend's going away party. And one of the girls that I interned with said, I just got a new job at this software company. I'm not going to say their name. They were the biggest software company of the 20th century. Starts with an I, ends with an M. I think we all know who we're talking about. She told me their process, she said, don't tell anybody, but their processes are a disaster. Their data is scattered. And this is a company that is supposed to be the epitome of process and organized data. So my question to you, Doug, is it an AI problem, or do a lot of organizations just don't have the right process and strategy in place to implement AI in an effective fashion?
From the small credit union perspective, I mean, that may be true. From the small credit union perspective, it's just new and it's just different. So for small credit unions, as far as AI, it's just a matter of starting to use it and figuring out how it can help. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's kind of a different from the perspective from my level.
Well, talk to me about, so are you saying that small credit unions have a solid process, or are you saying they don't have a solid process and there's a little bit of impromptu that goes along with using AI?
I don't understand how are you connecting process to small credit unions? The AI to process for small credit unions?
Because when you use AI, typically you're using it in a workflow. If you think about an assembly line, the traditional way that businesses operate with, I'm going to do this task. Here are the 17 steps that I'm going to use to take forth this task. For AI to really be effective, you have to understand the steps in which you as a human are going to take to accomplish individual tasks. when you look at a lot of organizations, they think they have a process for getting tasks done, but that process is often very loosey-goosey. You may have one person in accounting that does things that's Shirley's way of doing things. It's not documented. So it's more about documented processes internally that can then be fed to the AI to make it more effective. Do you think in your world, there's simply a lack of true documented processes, or is that simply not the case?
Not the case so much. Although garbage in, garbage out with AI, if you can't plug in the process, but most small credit unions aren't really plugging it into a process in that way. It's more like, I need to work on a letter that I have to write. Help me write the letter. Or I need to research a specific topic. So they still have their process. During the process, they're pulling out little pieces, little AI tools throughout the process. So it's a little different.
I think you answered my question a little bit. And Becky, I saw you kind of like going, yes, yes, yes. And Becky, maybe following up here to close out the segment, maybe that is the problem that a lot of these larger organizations are having. Like Doug's saying, sounds like Doug and a lot of people are pecking. It's not part of a larger process organizationally. It's part of regulators are coming in. Let me do a stress test on, what's going on here to get ready for the regulator. But it's not part of their DNA. It's all one-offs, consistent daily one-offs. Do you think, Becky, that is kind of the heart of the problem with this MIT study, is that businesses just aren't integrating it into the core of their business DNA?
Yes, and I think that you see that at larger credit unions too. I think the magic at small credit unions is that a lot of times they do have a situation where necessity is the mother of invention, right? So they have a need, and now there's a tool, and a smaller credit union is probably more likely to try something like that than an employee at a larger credit union who may feel, or the credit union may have implemented guardrails, or even bigger companies from the MIT study, to your point, have said, no, you are not allowed to do these things. And so, an entrepreneurial shop, a startup, a smaller organization like a credit union is probably more apt to try things because there isn't some institutional guardrails. There's not some risk officer that's saying, no, 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 no. So I think that in some cases, that compliance and that risk and that fear can be a barrier to innovation. So that's where I think small credit unions can win.
Small credit unions tend to do a lot of DIY. That's perfect for AI.
For nearly 10 years, Pure IT has helped credit unions modernize their technology, strengthen their cybersecurity posture, and build strategic roadmaps that align with their mission to serve members. They don't show up with a one-size-fits-all solution. Instead, Pure IT meets your credit union exactly where you are, whether you're tackling infrastructure upgrades, navigating regulatory pressure, or trying to stretch a small IT team across big institutional priorities. Pure IT's approach is simple. Put strategy first, reduce complexity, and give leaders the clarity they need to make confident technology decisions. With deep experience across cloud alignment, cybersecurity resilience, and long-term IT planning, they empower credit unions to operate securely, efficiently, and with purpose. If your institution is ready for a strategic partner who understands the unique challenges of the credit union world, visit pureitqso.com to learn more. That's pureitqso.com. Pure IT, helping credit unions build technology that works as hard as they do. Scott Simpson, the new president and CEO of America's Credit Union, spent his first months meeting with credit union leaders across the country. His takeaway? It's getting harder to lead a credit union. Small credit union CEOs face particular pressures because they're wearing all of these hats. But Simpson was clear this isn't just a small credit union problem. Doug, Scott Simpson says it's getting harder to be a credit union CEO, but in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, hasn't it always been really, really hard to be a credit union CEO? Because You're juggling all these different roles, responsibilities. So my question, Doug, in your opinion, what specific challenges or pressures have changed in the last few years that would make Scott Simpson say that it's getting harder to be a credit union CEO?
Although I'd agree that it is getting harder, I don't know how well I'd agree. Although Scott Simpson's great, ACU's great, America's great, I don't know how much I'd agree that it's more difficult for everyone. I think it's more weighed towards a burden on the small credit unions. And part of that's been happening for the past couple of decades. The regulatory burden's been growing. All credit unions have been growing, which is great because credit unions are awesome, big or small. But as they grow, more regulations come in. And small credit unions have kind of been asleep at the wheel. We haven't really been at the advocacy table. We're kind of busy in our small shops. And so as all these new regulations got dumped on credit unions, nobody was really there to speak up and be like, hey, actually, you need to give an exemption to that small credit union because it doesn't apply at all. Instead, small credit unions are having to comply with this gigantic burden of regulations that are completely irrelevant. And yet we're saddled with the same burden. So, I mean, that's me. I'm biased, obviously, but I'm like, yeah, I think small credit unions really have the brand. We're the ones that, like numbers are like dropping like a lawn dart.
Okay. Aside from the regulatory stuff, let's say I'm your small credit union therapist, Doug, and I climb in through your window. I don't know why I'm climbing in through your window. I'm your therapist. I'm on call. I'm your on-call small credit union therapist. And I say, Doug, what challenges or pressures have you really been feeling the last few years as a small credit union CEO that are completely unrelated to regulatory burdens?
So sadly, this is a spicy one, but competitive pressure. And I did that survey of all my small credit union friends and most of the CEOs, and most of them said the biggest challenge to keeping their credit union growing is growing loans. And the biggest competitor has become big credit unions. And that's different. That's changed. I've been doing this for almost 25 years now. And so that's a rough one. I mean, what do you do? There's not a lot you can do about that, but it is the truth now. They ranked it. So top was big credit unions, and then next was fintechs, and then the bottom of the list was banks. That's who credit unions are having to fight for their members and for their loans now. So that's a rough one. Hence why I try to focus on regulatory, because what are you going to do about that? I mean, that's the nature of competition.
Wow, I did not expect you to say big credit unions. Those are keeping you up at night. All right, Becky, talk to me about this. You're talking to a lot of credit union CEOs. You were one yourself. Do you agree with Scott's comment that it's getting harder?
No, I don't think that it's harder. I think that our resources continue to be stretched thin because of a lot of things. And Doug is absolutely right that regulations tend to be banded by asset size. So, you have, if you're under 250 million, then these regulations apply. If you're over, because there's an understanding that asset size equals complexity. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I mean, I know some $2 billion credit unions that when you walk in, you would think they were, a $300 million credit union. They're not doing complex things. And then I've also known a $65 million credit union that's doing very forward-thinking, complex things. So the banding by asset size equals complexity, I think, is an incorrect assumption from a regulatory perspective. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what Doug is saying around loans. And I think there is a homogenization in our industry where, and I love small credit unions, but I think to some degree, small credit unions are trying to act like the big credit unions and be everything to everybody. Now, not all of them do that, but to me, how you beat a large credit union who's taking loans in the community is do things that they don't. Meaning, if you serve teachers, then create a lending platform or a lending product that they can't find anywhere else, because only you can do that, because your members. Whereas a large credit union, is just trying to serve a massive amount of the community that might also overlap with the smaller credit union. But the smaller credit unions, I think, can double down on their community focused, their seg focus. And that's where you win in the niche. You win in the in between. And I think that's how you win. Stop homogenizing yourself to look like $1 billion shop. Act like a $30 million shop.
Doug, you've been really getting pumped up about what Becky's saying. You want to jump in here?
Oh man, no, she's so right. And she nailed it, which is why all credit unions are great. I mean, and big and small, but the small credit unions are forgetting, they're trying to compete with, they're just being generic. And small credit unions have an advantage. The niche, it's all about the niche, differentiating yourself, being special to your unique membership, your unique community. And if they lose that, then they're done. So Becky nailed it.
Doug, I want to ask you a question, but before I get to it, I just will preface it with this. I talk to a lot of small credit union leaders who, on camera, on the microphone, they're very pumped. They're very amped. I don't think they're lying about that. I think there is an excitement about what they do. But then when I talk to them off the record, they're exhausted. It's like I'm talking to somebody that's been running 10 miles an hour on a treadmill for 60 days straight with no water or no rest. So I can see the emotional toll that it takes out of a lot of the people leading these smaller institutions. With all these challenges we discussed today, what is it about being a leader of a small credit union that makes it worth it for you? That makes you want to get up in the morning and fight day in and day out to do this?
So I had my own answers. And then I also asked that question in that survey I did of a bunch of other small credit unions. Number one was making an impact for people that need it most. And that's what energizes. Number two is we love cooperatives. We drank the cooperative Kool-Aid. And so we're really into that. And the next down was, it is fun. It's a fun challenge to wear lots of hats and to be a generalist. So you kind of keep those things together, and I think that helps keep small credit union CEOs energized.
And what about you? You mentioned the survey, but just you. I don't care about your peers in this particular instance. I just want to know you personally, what fuels your fire, regardless of what these survey respondents say.
It's helping people that need it. So there's people that come in that would never be able to own a home anywhere. And then because we're a small credit union, we can be really flexible. We can look at things, we can approve things, we keep it in-house. We don't have to worry about secondary mortgage standards or anything. So we did a mortgage the other day for somebody that had no credit, zero credit. And they had an I-10, not a social security number. And we got them a mortgage anyway. And they bought a home. They've been living someplace for years. They'd paid rent perfectly. And so we used that. They had a huge down payment. They showed they saved money. And we helped them achieve the American dream. They got themselves a home. And so that's something that I don't think would have happened anywhere else. So it's making a difference in helping people that wouldn't get it anywhere else. And I think that's what keeps small credit unions really alive and excited. If they can hold on to that cooperative helping people vision.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the show. Doug, I want your final thoughts and your plugs. Hit me.
Oh, I want to do shout outs to a few trade associations, specifically like ACU, America's Credit Unions, DCUC, the Defense Credit Union Council. I started this little organization called the Endangered Small Credit Union Defense. And it was because last year I was like, what's happening? Small credit unions are dropping like flies. We're not really getting any regulatory relief. I mean, I kind of asked, some people and they're like, patted me on the head and sent me on my way. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get some small credit union voices together. And that's why I started this little organization. ACU and DCUC have been real nice. They've cooperated. We're still trying to get the message out to more leagues and everything, trying to help make sure small credit unions get two things. That's actually the purpose of this group I did was two things. It was to try to get regulatory relief for small credit unions and encourage small credit unions to give back, to radically give back, to be unique and different for their members. And those two things I think are going to help small credit unions survive. So other than that, I wrote a little book. I thought about all my little experiences of running a small credit union for almost 20 years now. So I wrote a little book called Keep It Simple CEO. And it's kind of talks about what Becky talked about, we talked about, just DIY everywhere you can, focus on lending, be special and different for your members. And it has little tips on how to deal with the NCUA in there and whatnot. So hopefully it's helpful. It's the only book around that really is written just for small credit and CEOs. So it's on Amazon. So there's a little plug for that if anybody's interested. And I put some articles, they're on CU Daily and the CU Today from it as well, if anybody's interested.
Beautiful. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, say they're listening and they're like, man, I really got to talk to that Doug guy. What is the best way that someone can get in touch with you?
Yes, two ways, probably LinkedIn. Just put Doug Wadsworth in LinkedIn. Or you can email me, doug@tri-cu.com, tri-cu.com. So happy to chat with anybody.
Becky, final thoughts and plugs.
So I think what most people don't realize is out of the 4,000 plus and declining credit unions that we have here in the United States, 80% of those are small, meaning less than 100 million in assets. And that is a huge portion of our industry that just doesn't get a lot of attention. I love what Doug is doing. I'll throw out a shout out to Scott Pryor at CU's Unite, who is really focusing on the smaller credit unions, sharing resources, doing things together, that multi-voice advocacy. I think that because small credit unions, it's the day-to-day, right? I mean, you are like on the ground working every single day. Sometimes things like advocacy, speaking up for yourself, are things that get missed. Looking out for help, asking for help, collaborating together, working on solutions, combining your resources, because you're just trying to keep your head above water most of the time. And so I think that organizations and people like Doug and Scott who can highlight these things and facilitate these discussions, I think that we don't have to get together in person anymore. You don't have to leave your institution. You can do a Zoom call or you can do a Teams call. You can get together and collaborate in ways that just were not possible even 10 years ago. But sometimes we still get stuck in the 10 years ago, mindset. And so I'm very bullish on the market. I would love to see small credit unions band together. 80% of our industry is a huge number, and it's a massive voice.
How can people get in touch with you, Becky? Tell me, because I don't know.
LinkedIn, baby.
LinkedIn, baby. Okay, I want to thank our guest, Doug. I want to thank my co-host, Becky Reed, and I want to thank our sponsor, Pure IT. You can learn more about Pure IT by heading over to pureitqso.com. And of course, special thanks to our listeners for continuing to listen and support another episode of Grow Your Credit Union. If you like the show, please follow us on your podcast player of choice. If you want to be a guest or would like to talk about sponsorship opportunities, head to growyourcreditunion.com to learn more. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.